on Miles Marav's Pursuit of Happiness. And this is what we had last week. Usually I manage to get a couple pages drawn on on any given stream. But last week there's so much detail in this. That was all we got was the one page. So we're going to finish that spread today. And then I have a feeling this one is going to take the same amount of time as the first one, but if I'm wrong, I do have something up my sleeve for the second half of the stream. But I have a feeling we're just going to be drawing this one. So what we are looking at, in case the non-photo blue doesn't really show up, well, I think it does. What's Miles all kind of like, uh-oh, when he's looking at across? Well, there's a shark there. Now, Miles is bigger than the shark, so probably not going to be much of an issue, but it's always a little, or at least I would assume it's disconcerting to be kind of face to face with a shark out in the water. I wouldn't know. I can't swim worth a damn. So, anyways, we will get going on that. Um, and we also will get the butt end of this boat. A little behind the eight ball. It always seems when I'm getting ready to start a show, it's like suddenly it goes from, I got 15 minutes, only takes me 2 minutes, to suddenly, oh crap, now it's time to run to the other side of the house and get my stuff together. So I'm kind of stalling a little bit while I go find my nibs in my giant pile of nibs. Um, I had my outside door open earlier today, and a fly found his way into my house and is buzzing around. So if you see sudden black streaks going across, that would be him trying to find his way out. Um, had even opened the door and was trying to shoo him out earlier, and I think there might actually have been a couple flies because one I think did go out, and then this other idiot, um, I guess, was hiding in a different room of the house. Anyways, so let's get right to it. I'm going to first kind of mark where these lines come across, um, and then we will kind of progress from there. So we got the um, side of that going. I'm going to kind of give some indication. I mean, this background, the darker, is a bit of a fatter nib, so we can look at that a little bit later. We probably want to have a little bit of seaweed coming out this way, just so that clump continues. We will pull the line of the boat down. Now, this is going to be right in like the gutter of the book, so worrying too much about where like these little lines indicating shading are coming and going, I'm not as concerned about, but definitely you don't want it to end up looking like that. Now, I mean, this book's going to be print on demand through Amazon, so sometimes that happens. I mean, that can happen even sometimes with a regular printing company if things get messed up in the making of the book, but we try and design for the assumption so as to minimize that, I guess is the way to put it. I am going to draw in some bigger seaweed here just to kind of break things up a little bit. Because we have kind of more this kind of grassy texture of seaweed, but I have some kelp that has a little bit more um, size to the leaves just for variation. Uh, we'll worry about the rest after, but now I can kind of go, okay, the back of the boat is going to cut through this way, and we're not kind of missing anything. And good. The back, and then, oh yeah. For a second, I thought I was going to do brain coral there, but that's actually the outboard motor. which will probably have brain coral growing on it. So, um, and maybe I'll stick, well, there's not much sense in putting too, you want some detail getting in close in case somebody's like really cranking the book, but whether it makes sense to say have a couple more angelfish, I don't know. I think kind of more just that sort of an idea. Um, yeah, and that's kind of enough to go off of for now. This isn't going very far. I'm just going to put it on top of my laptop right up there. So now we can progress. And I'll bring down a little bit more light. And yeah, so I usually try and go through with the thinner nib. I've also got a couple fatter ones here. These are just like the Speedball cartooning dip pen sets and the different nibs that come with that. So they're nothing too fancy. Um, and I do find this particular nib will start to want to gum up at a certain point. So I'm not gonna do all the fine line drawing. We're gonna do a section, put this one in to soak, and I've got some bottles of water off to the side, and then add some deeper shading and kind of work back and forth. So, uh, let's see, is it already trying to get gummed up on me? But nah, we're working here. And they're trying to have kind of a variety of different sorts of coral. The other thing I usually try and do would be a little bit of texture in the background, but I think that's definitely a fatter nib. Oh, and the other thing I was gonna say is usually I try and work top left down to bottom right just because I'm right-handed and I have a tendency to smudge things. So mostly been showing the kind of angelfish types lower down, and they probably would be. I am not a fish biologist. I assume they kind of would want to hide more, but just so for some variety in what we've got kind of swimming in the more open water, let's add some angelfish into here. So as I've been working on this project, it's kind of become a bit of a given that Miles is kind of a water guy. He likes his more on the surface, right? He likes his motorboats and all that sort of stuff. I don't think I've drawn him on a jet ski, but I do definitely imagine him having a jet ski, put it that way. So this one is the first where we actually see him under the water. And the project overall is the book title, Miles Mars Pursuit of Happiness, with that kind of references is um, the overall theme of the book. And it's one where each week I kind of wing it for what I'm going to draw. The origin of the project had to do with a YouTuber named Struthless. He had a alphabet superset challenge, I guess 3 years ago now, and that was you kind of pick whatever medium you like using and pick your theme, and then you would pick sub themes, and each week do a piece of work starting with the letter of the alphabet. Um, related to your overall theme. So I had had this little mouse guy character, Miles. Had just been developing of one of my sketchbooks, and decided to play around with him for this project. Just gonna bring this down so I can try and have some continuity between the two sides. Anyway, so a lot of Miles's character development and definition kind of came out of these drawings, but um, didn't really have a storyline for it other than the kind of him dealing with boredom or kind of that sort of thing what he'd rather be doing at times. And it's only been since I started live streaming the project in January, that I kind of decided what I'm going to do with it is treat each of these as kind of like the chapter headers, and then I'll write short stories that relate to each of the illustrations. Obviously, some weeks I've had where it's just like a series of vignettes of like six smaller drawings or four smaller drawings. So we will modify from that, or in those cases, there might be multiple interlocked short stories, I guess. Haven't quite decided yet. It's kind of the opposite of how I usually work. Usually I have a story first and then I figure out how to illustrate it. But definitely has been a bit of a challenge for how I think and whatnot. Um, and this, I do have one short story called Christmas in Ratsville that's narrated by Myles here. Um, I was in a anthology that the writers group I was attending um, did a couple of Christmases ago, and Myles is connected to my other project, Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat, that I work on Fridays, although I've missed the last couple Friday streams. Um, the way that is that Myles is the cousin of Ricky's girlfriend. So that Christmas in Ratsville story um, is about the time when Ricky and Myles first met. Um, and there's a version of it narrated by Ricky. Hi, already animates. How's it going? Animates. Hope I said that right. There's a version of the story narrated by Ricky, and then there's Miles's version. So, anyways, a little bit of inside baseball there, I guess. And I think this is a good spot to have another one of these corals that kind of looks like a cactus. I'll give it some spots for texture. Good job. Oh, thank you. Mm. Maybe we want to put some anemones back here. We've got some further back there, and we've got a little grouping of them here, but it's always good to kind of add some different textures. And I will say I have, other than going to the aquarium multiple times as a kid, I do not have any experience. And I do watch like YouTube documentaries on like reefs and diving and all that, but I'm kind of pulling stuff out of my butt here. You can kind of see the underdrawing is very, other than where the shark is and the boat and some bigger stuff down here, and kind of know that I will figure it out as I go. So definitely not meant to be a definitive biological survey of any actual real reef. For example, I know there's a lot of starfish where I live. I'm I'm on Vancouver Island, so a far coast. I know we've got octopuses, we've got starfish, we've got anemones, we've got a whole bunch of critters down there. Um, but whether they would exist in the same spot as like the corals, I don't know. But it's the cartoon universe, so I could put a little UFO with a little green man popping out to kidnap and probe Miles, and technically that would totally work. You're from New Orleans, nice. So also very close to the coast, then, well, right on the coast, right? So I wouldn't pretend really to know anything about the Gulf of Mexico's biodiversity, although I mean in New Orleans, I guess you guys, well, not in the ocean, but assume you guys kind of have, the bayous close by and, alligators and that sort of thing, along with, what, catfish and crayfish and whatnot. But my knowledge of, the biodiversity of any of those areas, about as good as the knowledge that I have of my local ones, which is to say not much, but in some ways that makes it fun because then it's just like, I'm not, beholden to what actually is down under the water in my area and just making it up. Plus, Miles is on vacation somewhere in, the Rats film, universe, so who knows what they got down there. Ricky insists that there's such things as mercats, that, rats have to be careful of if they go swimming in the ocean, so things are a little, non-realistic down there. Although, actually, the graphic novel I'm working on with Ricky is called Ricky B Goes to Sea, and, there's probably won't get to it for another month worth of streams, but, I think about 10 or 15 pages from where I'm at now, there's a scene where Ricky's arguing with his cousin Darren about, the ocean and what, lives down there. So, Ricky insists, there's mercats, and Darren points out that there's no such thing as mercats, but there are sharks. So, yeah, let's bring this little rocky area over a little bit. Kind of want to show that whatever this area is, it's in front of the boat, like it's out here, so it's kind of jutting up, and then the boat bottom is going to be kind of backing down. Yeah, let's draw some of these little tiny fishies hiding around in the boat, 'cause that's probably a fairly good place for them to hide. Now, this is going to be reduced somewhat um, when it gets printed, if I'm not mistaken. I have to look up exactly what the book size is going to be. I think when I started doing this, I thought I was going to reduce it quite a bit to like an, I always get mixed up, A5, I think, but um, may not go that small, or I might have the pages a bit bigger and then have like frames around them. I have to decide. Especially now that I'm planning on doing short stories to go with this, then you have to kind of account for text, right? So if you have a book that's way too small, the font either has to be tiny or the book ends up being really thick and then it's awkward to hold. Um, like, is it 2021? I picked up a copy of U2 by U2 because I was late to getting interested in that band. And I saw, oh, there's a book about them. Okay, it's narrated interviews by them, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I got it, but I got the paperback version, and that thing was like a brick. I'm looking for if I have something. I don't. Um, I was looking for one of my smaller sketchbooks, but it would kind of be, it's smaller than a trade paperback, I think, but 'cause there's so much text is, like, that thick, you know? So trying to read it, like, hurt your hands, and you'd have to, like, crank it open and have difficulty seeing the inside, and it's terrible, and then at some point on eBay, I saw a hardcover copy of it that's, like, the opposite extreme, it's like a massive coffee table book, I'm like, "That one's gonna be so much easier to deal with," so I got that, and um, donated the paperback version at one of the thrift stores, but, point is, that's something I gotta keep in mind when I'm deciding what size to finally go with. Um, Usually when I have book projects, well, I say usually, I have not published any yet. There's gonna be, like, a couple that are all being finally finished this year. Um, but, normally when I'm going like, "Oh, okay, I want this to be whatever," then one of the first things I do is figure out the size and do, like, a mock-up with, just printer paper and cut it to size and use Scotch tape to hold it together and whatnot, and then kinda determine from there, and then work backwards on what size my art needs to be proportionally to reduce to blah, 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 blah. Um, and so and obvi I did not I sorta did that with this one, but at that point, I think I was thinking it was just gonna be visuals, so just the drawings and be really small, thin book, but anyways, things change. So, hi, Athena's art or Artog. Think I said hope I said that right. How's it going? S Outboard motor. Guess there would be some sort of a handle on this, wouldn't there? There'd probably actually be a longer handle for steering with. Just kinda put that in there. And then it needs to have a stem, but I think I'm gonna have it where it, is broken. In fact, I guess that's why I drew things at an angle. So, there. Some really big kelp kinda leaves down here. Kelp might not even be the right term because some stuff is kinda looking like it should be tropical and some stuff not. So, again, who knows how the, oceanography works in, Miles's cartoon world. Have this little promontory coming down here, and it's a little spiky thing, which is probably a sea urchin. Yeah, we'll have a couple more anemones in here, maybe some fatter ones, so it's not just this guy who's really huge. It's got a huge glob of ink that decided to come down right there. That's fine. Just make that into a big shadow. Kind of spread that around. I'm not too worried about the big gob of ink there because I do tend to come in later with fatter nibs and darken areas in. So that just means it happened naturally. Just have to be mindful when I'm drawing up here that I don't drag my hand through that. Making some squiggles like there's some brains, that coral that looks like brains or whatever. Very scientific term, the or whatever. I'll kind of use that to dip my pen in also to try and re-up when I'm running low on ink. I think in the underdrawing, I put too many fins on the propeller. I think they usually just have like 3. So we'll go with that number. We'll assume that some of this is a little bit buried in the mud. And I did say I was going to put some little fishies in, so they're a little misshapen, but maybe they're mutants. Or maybe in the mouse and rat world, those cheese flavored goldfish crackers come to life and live in the ocean. Who knows? What I do know is that despite the terrified expression on, at least severely concerned expression on Miles's face, you know that when he's telling this story later on, he's going to claim that he saw the shark coming and he punched him in the nose and he wasn't afraid of nothing. It's just something he and Ricky have in common, actually, because Ricky will always insist that he ain't afraid of nothing. Sometimes he gets startled, that's all, but he's never actually afraid. Some of this detail, when it gets reduced for printing, it's going to be really hard to see, but you know, it's kind of neat sometimes to have things that are end up being really tiny details. And then, somebody sees the final printed version and they haven't seen this stream to realize how big it actually was when I was drawing it, they'll be very impressed at how tiny I got the detail. Probably not. I would think most modern audiences are kind of sophisticated to how that goes, but you never know. It's gonna put some very small indications, like there's either a tiny thin coral or a little bit of seagrass or something back there. It's kind of good to muck around and change up your textures and whatnot. somewhere in there I did have a little crab on the other side, so maybe I'll give the little crab, to borrow a saying from Bob Ross, everybody needs a little friend, so we'll give the crab a little friend over here. His friend is hiding. Maybe the friend doesn't want to be a friend. Who knows? Or maybe the friend is just kind of needs a little bit of alone time. One thing is, some of this stuff I was just scribbling in there, but it kind of ends up looking like the gill slit, indicating as if there was yet another tiny little fish hanging out in there. Um, don't want to go too much further right at this point because then it's going to make it awkward when I'm inking. So we're going to go back up to the top again. And you know what? Let's let that pen soak in water and get some of the excess ink out. And let's take the medium sized nib and we'll just put a few little areas and kind of lightly scratch in a little to give some sense of darker water and getting lighter up towards the top. Yeah. Now that looks slightly darker in here than over there, but you do get kind of some lighter and darker areas. Um, even looking through the water columns, so I'm not too bothered by that. That one's now run out. So we're going to pull the other pan out and put some more fishies up there. And usually when there's a shark around, the fish all kind of take off, but perhaps for whatever reason, they're not registering that this shark could be a threat. So, which could make them really stupid, obviously. Or who knows how they sense things. Another group of three. I think I'll actually make this a bigger school, kind of like over there. I've got the group of seven. So I might have them kind of trailing out a little bit. That fish looks fat or pregnant, one or the other. Yeah, you know what? Five of them, I think, is a good number. Um, see, some other fish make them smaller, which could either be that they're actually smaller or just means that they're further away. So gonna run these guys off the page. I mean, this is gonna be somewhat cropped, like down about like that much. Oh, oh, I'm sorry. Time to put the first page away so that everything. Page. I mean, whoops. This is gonna be somewhat cropped. And then I hit the unmute button on my. Okay. Too much stuff on my desk. We'll just put Miles over on the side. Anyways, so I have drawn this a little bit bigger than what the actual is because these pages will be full bleeds. So the actual cut line will probably be about like that, like about an eighth to a quarter of an inch down. Have to look up exactly how big Amazon does their crops, but you always kind of want to draw towards the edge knowing some stuff is going to vanish. It just makes it more realistic. So there, got it. And now I'm gonna, well, I'll use up this ink such as it is, kind of down here, and then I'll get that medium sized nib again, and then I can finish off this kind of top area. And I'll probably be working down in here for the rest of the stream because all this is only taken, or all this stuff has taken about half an hour, which usually I would have a half of a page done by that, as opposed to basically a third, if that. So I just had an idea, maybe around here somewhere we have, because this is kind of going up, could have it kind of come out as if it has a bit of a cave there. Maybe we have an eel popping its head out. Not the most realistic eel, but get the sense of something with pointy teeth. As a kid, there was well, teenager as well. There was a aquarium store called Big Al's, which I think was a chain. I think they actually might have been out of Florida, based out of Florida. But they used to have at least several locations up in Canada, in BC and whatnot. And the one in Richmond had huge um, tank in the back, and They had a moray. I don't know if it was actually a moray eel, but it kinda looked like a moray eel. They had a massive, massive, grouper, and they had some kind of a shark in this tank that was that no, I wouldn't go so far as to say it. It definitely wasn't the size of the room I'm in now, but, I'd say it was probably 8 feet by 8 feet by about 6 feet deep, like, massive, massive tank. So it's kind of fun to go and when you're waiting for, the clerk to, go fetch you your neon tetras or whatever, go and have a look at, the shark and the eel. Somewhere I actually have some photos of them, I think. I took on my phone, but place is definitely long, long gone now. Put some more seagrass up here. And now we'll switch back to the fatter nib. Probably also come back with that fatter nib and add some more, um, just some more darker areas, because that's what I did in here too, where it had all been, the line work initially, and then just added a little bit of the extra with the thicker nib, and it kind of makes things pop a bit more. Anyways, let's carry on with drawing our reef here. Maybe some more brain coral or whatever this is. Yeah, let's draw some more tiny fish hiding in here. So I think the type of shark that I use as a reference is a black-tipped reef shark. So a bit of shadow on the top. Another little trio of, I guess, angelfish or whatever. Some sort of a flatter fish. Possibly in danger from the moray, maybe not. After all, they could be much closer to us than he is. So, draw half of an anemone here as if, well, because it is in behind the shark and therefore blocked from view. Sharks tend to have this kind of a lateral line too, which is sensory sort of a thing, I guess, for their electrical system. Do that. Just adding in some darker spots to kind of give a little bit more definition in the rock. Much as Miles has a thicker outline on him, we will assume the shark does as well. Darkening up the background like this also kind of sets the upper range of your values from black to white. Um, so then things that otherwise would look kind of like here, there's a little too much samey same. And though some of it's also that the rest of this hasn't been drawn in, so the light areas here still kind of read as like a gray. Um, but as things get filled in, then the lighter areas kind of pop, and then we've got our definition happening. But Probably have another little group of fish in right there. Like that. The seaweed's starting to pop out more now with darker areas coming in around it. And it doesn't have to be a perfect outline, but that kind of lifts the lighter areas, I think. Even just that. Give a little outline to this crab. Now, I did think afterwards that maybe I should put some jellyfish in, but because I don't have them in the other side, I don't know. Would it be weird to add them now? Can always. So I've got an area where I can add one into the other side, so it's kind of balanced. I mean, not everything needs to match on both sides. Like I'm not having a second moray eel here. I'm probably not putting an octopus that's here. I may put another octopus hiding. I don't know, but I don't think jellyfish need to be mirrored. But I'm going to. So we've got one jellyfish on that side, and we'll put another one on the side we're working on today. Trying to decipher what that squiggle was supposed to be. And just make it another big anemone. I'll put some more teeny tiny fish right in here, maybe in there as well. I can definitely tell I don't think I'm gonna need what I have as, extra material for today's show. I was going like, "Well, if I get through, this side fast, maybe I'll start." I knew I wasn't gonna start, like, the next, spread for the, tea, stuff, because I haven't finished picking out the words, that we're gonna use as prompts to illustrate, but, plus I kind of would rather just have that go together rather than a part 1 and then finish part 2, you know what I mean? So, at the bonus cartoon, we'll sure we'll kind of use at some point. It has to do with Miles and Ricky getting into a bar fight over their version of Batman, whether it's Bat Rat, as Ricky insists, or Bat Mouse, as Miles insists. Um, but I've got that blue line, so anytime I've got a stream where I kind of finish the planned material early, well, now I've got something to have as a go-to. There'll probably eventually be a whole uh, little mini comic series, you know, however many pages where Ricky and Miles are getting into this bar fight, but that's that's for future use. One of my neighbors is doing his weed whacking right now. I don't think that picks up in my mic, but I can hear it going. "Rrrr." I'm like, what the hell? I mean, hey, it's got to get done. It's got to get done. It's just kind of unusual to be being done on like a Monday afternoon, evening. So, some more little seagrass there. Maybe we've got some more angelfish around here. I'm calling them angelfish. I'm probably getting the name totally wrong. The shark a little bit of shading. Now, the blue underdrawing does show right now, but this is going to be because it's a black and white drawing. It'll be scanned in black and white, and that blue should knock out. Some areas where it's particularly prominent, I might have to Photoshop a little bit, but mostly it will disappear. And I have actually done a test page that I scanned and reduced and whatnot, and the blue was gone. So, and in case anyone's wondering, the non-photo blue I do use is Prismacolor PC 919. It is definitely a darker non-photo blue than back in the day. Like on Wednesday nights, I've been inking um, comic that I started in 2013 and then set those 8 pages aside, which was for my original webcomic, Zommel the Destroyer. And that's the non-photo blue. I don't have that pencil anymore, but the color was more like this shade of blue instead of that. And this it was actually at times very difficult to make out what the hell I had drawn in 2013 because it was so pale. But it definitely is it's definitely a non-photo. Definitely not gonna show through in any scanning. Um, anyways, that's kind of like the old school cartooning. You do your rough sketch in a non-photo blue or whatever. I mean, I don't know what they did in the 1940s or whatever. I'd have to look that up. But um, when I was taught traditional cartooning, comics process in the mid 2000s, that was kind of the standard accepted way to do it. And then you would use like, actually, what they used to use were Xerox machines. Like if you had a day job, like an office job, you'd try and sneak and, use the, photocopier at work to do your reductions or even your whole reproductions, depending on how closely, such things were monitored. Um, Now, of course, you just scan it on a computer, but same thing, you just do your setting as a black and white scan, and then it's in theory, shouldn't, pick up. It's just occasionally picking this out to sort of see different things that I put in different layers. So I have a little sort of seagrass planting over here. Well, planting's not the right word, but you know what I mean. Trying to make a point of having these things where the tips disappear behind the shark, because that also makes the shark come forward. So course, a school of fish could have hundreds of members, but ain't nobody got time for that. So, kind of cap it out at about seven, just to give the sense that there are a whole bunch of these little guys running around. I've got one crab down here. Maybe I need another one sort of over here. Actually, I may well. I think I said I wasn't going to put another octopus in, but might actually be kind of a fun thing to have over here. Have them kind of hidden. Definitely a bit of an impossible reef, I suspect, but what do I know? Gets a little bit tricky because I kind of want to have some big stuff in the middle, but I do usually want to work top down, but sometimes you just got to do the foreground and go back so you know what's, because otherwise you just fill in everything with this small stuff. Um, yeah, we're an hour and a half in, and we are definitely not getting to the just in case material today. That's fine. It's kind of good to have a couple of these spreads in the book that are going to be just kind of, not to sound arrogant or whatever, but kind of showstoppery, like, because there's this one, there's Miles at the Carnival for C, which is just one huge spread. Um, There's the one I did a few weeks ago, Myles on a Quest, although that didn't have nearly as much detail as this, but still. Um, you know, this kind of breaks it up from stuff that's a little smaller. And then vice versa, the spreads that have several smaller drawings kind of break it up from these really big detailed drawings as well. So it's all good. I think I was looking at doing some planning earlier, and I think I figured out that I'll probably be depending on the amount of detail in the remaining spreads. But if I do a spread per show as normal, as I normally have been doing, um, basically I've got T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So I got 7 um, spreads to do kind of from scratch. And then there are a couple that I wanted to either redraw entirely or redraw parts of. So I'll assume that that takes, you know, extra month, but I would be finished the main. Oh no, I've done it again. I think some of what I was drawing, I think was off camera there. Sorry about that. Um, but I should be finished this project, at least this phase of it, by some time, by the end of June or mid-July, depending. So that'd be kind of a big milestone. Then I have to go write all the stories. So it's not actually over. Um, but what I'll be doing on the Monday streams after that point is looking at some of, like, aside from the Ricky B. Rat graphic novel that I'm working on Fridays, I do have a whole bunch of of short stories narrated by Ricky. Um, and I want those to have illustrations in the book that I'm going to do. So that means that I'll start on Mondays working on illustrations for the Ricky short stories, and Myles is in a lot of those. So um, it's not like we won't be seeing Myles. We'll just, you know, kind of be seeing Myles through Ricky's eyes, I guess. Um, so that's the plan on that one. And then I'll have to go and actually write the stories for the Myles book. And then some of them may have other additional illustrations aside from what I've done here. So it's all kind of a wash, rinse, repeat sort of thing, you know. Kind of like adding all these little fish. Let's move back to the thicker nib and put some heavier areas into this little section. And yeah, we are chugging along slowly but surely. Definitely feels more slow than sure, but yeah, it's getting there. One of my problems with my art is I'm a little bit impatient, so like on is Saturday night, I was at the opening for the Cowichan Valley's annual fine arts show. I have a painting in there. It features Ricky. Actually, I got to put up a. I've shot a what I call like a painting tour, um, where I scanned over the painting and talked as I went about some themes and blah blah blah. Um, so I gotta edit that. I probably won't do too much editing of it, but I do need to get that video up and posted soon. And also write a blog that goes with it. But anyways, I have a painting in there. So if you happen to live on Vancouver Island, do come to Duncan, the fine art show at the Cowichan Valley Arts Council's gallery runs all month. Um, and I don't know how many, dozens anyways, if not 100 and some odd paintings for sale and sculptures and ceramics and, very drawings, various pieces. Um, anyways, I'd go there. I had done this painting and I'm happy with the painting, but it's definitely feeling a little bit experimental to me. And as I'm like sitting there and the director of the Arts Council is doing her standard, the speeches, thanking the sponsors, all that sort of stuff. I'm sitting there on my phone taking notes about how I should do my next round of paintings, etc. But also, paintings kind of, in terms of time wise, kind of have to be a hobby, not a main artistic practice. That would be for me the main artistic practice is this kind of stuff. And I was also kind of thinking like next year maybe I should do a piece like this, but probably on bigger Bristol board, and then that would be my submission. Like obviously I'd have to get it properly framed, which is a pain in the ass, but or I could do this level of detail using acrylic paint pens on a canvas because I tend to use acrylic paint pens more for some detail and almost like a graffiti style, um, as opposed to like going all out with it and using that as the main medium, yeah, if that makes sense. But I guess I was kind of at the gallery looking at all the other paintings and kind of going like, man, I drew this last week in the painting I put in. I don't. Well, I mean, it's hard to compare. Uh, it's not the same genre and not the same medium. But I was kind of a little bit like, I think what I did on stream last week is better than what I put in the gallery. But it's an apples and oranges kind of comparison, I think. Anyways, let's add some more angelfish. I think that's also something that a lot of artists do, where it's like, you go with the idea that makes the most sense when you're getting ready for the show, and then it's always after submission date or after the thing goes up that you think about, oh, wait, I could have done this instead. But it is what it is, you know. But I will say, I mean, over the last couple years, I've had a bit of a thing about trying to make my paintings match, um, how I do comics more. So, I mean, you can look around on my, channel here and you'll find different, videos I've done about paintings and whatnot. So, now I'm incorporating a lot more of my cartooning, work and whatnot, whereas I did not used to do that. They used to be completely separate. So, I think I trying to remember what blog I wrote at the end of last year talking about some goals for this year. And that would be on my Substack, piradraculea.substack.com. There's probably a link in the video description. If not, it's my name, pyradraculea .substack.com. So actually, I need to get back into writing a weekly blog. I was doing it for a while and I kind of fell off the wagon in April and got to get back on it. But one of the things I talked about as a goal for this year was more integration between my so-called fine art and my cartooning. So, anyways, that's a whole blah blah blah. These are all small. These are big. Let's have some medium sized. Yeah, something about that big. But you can kind of see what I was saying earlier about, or did I say it out loud or did I just think it? But sometimes there's something to be said for working from the bottom up because that's going to be your foreground and what's closest. So the stuff that's closest to you and then layering back and having the overlaps right. Whereas when you do top down, yes, you're less likely to smear, but you're also less likely to do things like have this grass go up enough to overlap that. Now, when I finish the grass, I will draw in an anemone or a coral or something behind it to kind of fake it. But anyways, that's I guess some people would have this level of detail in like their underdrawing, and then they're doing is outlining what's already there. Whereas my underdrawings are kind of more suggestions. So, you know, so what did I say I was gonna put a coral in there. Yeah, let's do that. So, anyways, it's probably because I don't know, lazy is probably not the right word for it when I'm spending 2 hours drawing a single page, but, um, I'm not a big fan of, like, making the underdrawing as detailed as the final drawing. I don't know, spontaneity, I guess, or efficiency of not having to draw the same thing twice, but it does mean that, sometimes those kinda overlap type things don't flow quite as nicely. But then also that at a certain point becomes part of your style, you know? So let's pop these guys a little bit more out. That anemone looks a lot more like a flower, but oh well. Let's add some more tiny fish in behind. And I'm going to do one of those down here that's quite big with kind of narrow leaves. Slowly but surely, we are almost done this page. Definitely the most labor-intensive, spread on this project so far. Probably will end up being the most labor-intensive spread. Another little crab there. Trying in the, space that I've got left to have a few more things kind of poking out from behind, um, just to give this sense of more little critters hiding and whatnot. And let's have one more big fat anemone to kind of fill in this space. All right, now let's grab the other nib just to give a few more fatter outlines in this last little section. A little bit of shading into these big fat leaves. Gives them a bit of a different texture. I think that is going to do it for this one. So let's have, I'll pull this over. So the combo there kind of ties together nicely. And then this is what we did today. So, not bad. 2 hours and 5 minutes? Yeah, roughly 2 hours. 'Cause I don't think I started drawing right at the exact start of the show. I think it took me a minute or a couple minutes to get set up. So, that is tonight's drawing. To bring the two up so you can see both Miles and the shark. So, rest of the week streaming. Tomorrow we are working on the Noah's Archipelago 2027 calendar. We will be redoing March, which I didn't do on stream, but I had messed up the shape of Noah's face. So, anyways, we're going to do that. And I think June. And then Wednesday, I will have some Zoma the Destroyer. I finished that 8 page reboot that never was, but I'm going to do like a 1 or 2 page coda that sort of concludes the comics anthology, but also lets people know there's going to be podcast scripts, short stories anthology, and those will have illustrations. So we'll be working on Zomo on Wednesday. Thursday, what is Thursday going to be? Thursday's coloring pages. So the A to Z of Noah's jobs for again and Noah's Archipelago. And then on Friday, I have missed the last two Friday nights. One, because I had an event I had to be at, and then last week I was here, but I ate something that really didn't agree with me, so I was not able to stream, unfortunately. But fingers crossed that we will make it to the Friday stream this week because I can't wait to continue on working on inking Ricky B Goes to Sea. And then I did a couple Sundays ago, I did one Sunday live stream, Sunday afternoon live stream, and that was fun. But honestly, um, this week I wasn't able to make it work. And I think in general, I'd rather not stream on Sunday, even if I'm cartooning. I kind of keep that whole rest day or whatever. But I am starting to post my weekly recaps of all the art I've been doing, including stuff. Well, there's some stuff I'll do off camera that I wouldn't show on that if it's spoilers for a book or whatever. But there's certainly some art that it's not spoilers for a book. It's not relevant to a stream. So I do a recap where I show what I did. It's a little show and tell. They usually end up being an hour long, but they're pre-recorded. For a while, in November, December, or January, I was doing them on this channel, and then I started in February. I tried my hand at vlogging instead and realized I really don't want to vlog. It's not my skill set. If I have to do the editing myself. Plus, I think my life is kind of too boring outside of my art. So, um, then I started doing the recaps again, sort of here and there, hit and miss. And I've been doing them actually posting onto a secondary channel of mine for a couple weeks. But A, they weren't really getting any views over on the secondary channel. And B, I noticed people were watching the one from like 3 weeks ago on this channel. It's like, well, I mean, it's not that it's really out of date. It's work that I've done. But, if I'm going to do them, I figure I might as well post them on this channel again. So I posted one this past, a couple days ago. And from now on, I'll just post those here as well. So in terms of pre-recorded videos, I will see you on Saturday. But anyways, that's the general plan. And then, of course, next Monday, we will be back inking Myles again with whichever of his adventures involve the letter T. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your patience. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, and if you enjoy what you're seeing, please like and subscribe for more of this sort of thing. Not always as detailed as this, but definitely as weird as, I was gonna say mouse man. Miles is half mouse, half rat. Um, his mom is a rat and his dad is a mouse. Anyways, that definitely doesn't happen in the real world, but it's cartoons. And alcohol was involved in the cartoons, and cartoon alcohol much more potent than our alcohol, generally speaking. Anyways, um, so that's Miles goes scuba diving and sees a shark. And we will see you again real soon for more cartooning. In fact, 20 less than 24 hours now, 22 hours from now. Monday to Friday on this channel, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. We do a little cartooning. So that's it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching. Bye for now, and bye-bye, Miles. Bye-bye, Shark. Take care. See you soon.